Most people are not struggling with money right now. They are struggling with fear. And that fear is shaping every decision they are making. What you are feeling right now is not random. It is not just the economy. It is not timing. What is being activated right now is your survival pattern. And if you don't understand that, you will keep trying to fix your life at the surface while the real pattern continues underneath. Welcome to the Empowered Healers Podcast. I'm Songbird Grandmother, and today we're going to dive into a very powerful topic that is on most people's mind, and that is the fear of money, the economy, the collapsation of the old timelines, the old ways, the old era, and the best ways to move forward in this uncertain time. So, right now, you may feel like you're working harder than you have ever worked, trying new strategies, posting more content, doing everything that you have been doing before that was perhaps successful, trying new things, listening to every guru on the block, and still yet maybe you're not having the success. Maybe you're not seeing things move. Maybe you're burnt out. Maybe you're working many side jobs. So it feels right now there's a lot of work, there's a lot of effort, but there's just not a lot of growth. And if this is you and your money is feeling inconsistent, it doesn't feel stable, and underneath it, your intention, we have to go deeper and realize that that tension is not just about money. It is your body responding to uncertainty. It is your system asking, am I safe? Can I trust what is happening? What happens if this doesn't work? And for many people, the question is not new. For right now, this is the year for new creativity. There is something different about creativity versus fertility. Fertility is something you're born with. Creativity is something you learn through problem solving, through hard times. And this year in Setochli, the first rabbit year, it is a time for creativity. And like I shared in my last podcast, this year requires you to be creative in the daytime and the nighttime. For answers will come through the dream time, and they will come through inspiration, through ideas, through critical thinking, through using your mind to solve hard, complex problems. So going back to, am I safe? Can I trust what is happening? What happens if this doesn't work? If you find yourself asking those questions or questions like that, this connects to something personal, something from your past, something from your family patterns. And for many, it goes deeper than that. Patterns of instability, sacrifice, lack, fear, survival. Things that were lived long before you. And when uncertainty increases in the world, it activates what is already stored within you. This is why the reaction feels bigger than the moment. This is why when you're triggered, your nervous system responds from past patterns, from survival, running, the system. And when survival is running your system, you cannot move cleanly. You cannot move clearly. You're going to tighten. You're going to hesitate. You're going to overthink everything. And eventually that leads to trust. It comes down to when you tighten, when you hesitate, when you overthink, you stop trusting yourself. You start fearing the unknown. And when you have this running through your system, the next step of that is let me force everything. More effort, more pushing, more urgency. But both of those, they're the same pattern. Fear, just moving in different directions. And unfortunately, neither one creates stability. And this is where most people lose themselves. They will start shrinking, they question their value, they hold back what they know, they wait for the right time, they look outside themselves for reassurance, and slowly disconnect from their own authority. Then money becomes even more unstable, not because you're doing nothing, but because fear is now leading everything. Stability is not created by controlling everything around you. That is the illusion. Stability is created by how you hold yourself when things are not certain. Your nervous system, your decisions, your connection to guidance, your ability to move without collapsing into fear. So I invite you to take a deep breath in and out and feel that uncertainty in your body. And on the exhale, release. Notice where in your body you feel tight, rigid, stiff. These are the places and spaces where the fear is trapped. And there are people right now living in this state of fear who are not ready to expand. Because when you're in survival, the thing that survival wants is to hold on. And that's what fear is. It controls, it dominates, it forces, it wants to control the river. Unfortunately, right now, the river is expanding, and the only way to expand is to open those tight spaces. And this is where that shift comes in because there are people right now in the same situation. Bills are stacking up, everything's getting more expensive, and yet they are expanding. They're moving forward, they're receiving, they're investing, they're making decisions based off of their intuition, their guidance, their higher self. They may not know the result, but they have a deep inner trust because they're not operating from survival. This is why, if we look back upon the last 13 years, really since 2012, when everybody thought the world was going to end in the spiritual new age. But if we look back on that time period, really 2008 to 2012, when a lot of people did have big spiritual awakenings, that was the atmosphere, the financial collapse. People were losing their houses, their jobs, their livelihoods. They were in debt. Everything was stacked up against them. And those who were able to just let go we're able to move forward and build new foundations. And now, when this uncertainty hits, they have more skills so that if you keep expanding and growing, what happened in that time frame doesn't happen again. Because they learn to move from trust and not what's going to happen next. How will I survive? How do I hold on? And that was really the beginning of the fabric loosening in our systems. And now you have another opportunity to let go, to expand, to go further, to redefine who you are, what you want, and move forward. Because soon we will be given a blank slate, a reset. What that will look like, we can only guess. But the systems that are running right now are all going through a reset. They are going through a shift. And if we shift it into more survival, it will get very rough. It will be worse than they are now. However, if we shift into expansion, into creativity, into abundance, flow, nature, then they will become something more beautiful. But we can't overthink it. We can't force it. We can't push it. We have to work through it. And in this year, this is a reset year because it requires us to go deeper into the truth. And you start with yourself. You start by telling the truth. You know, one of the things in the spiritual new age that is very off-putting is there's not a whole lot of truth. There's a whole lot of spiritual bypassing. Things will get better. I'll deal with that later. Oh, that's, you know, 3D. I'm in the 5D. A lot of that terminology is ways that we lie to ourselves. Oh, I'm of a higher frequency. I'm a chosen one. I'm a this. I'm a light worker. All that verbiage creates hierarchy. It creates up and down, high and low. When the truth is not high or low, up or down, the truth is the truth. It's just clear. It's a circle, and it's often the thing you don't want to hear. So, the first step in really stepping into expansion and abundance is to start telling the truth. Look at your finances, look at your situation, and say, where am I struggling? And why am I struggling? What do I need to do to stop struggling? Where am I tightening? Where am I hesitating? Where are you letting fear make your decisions? And then when you have the real truth in your hand, you come back to your body. You get out of your head, out of analysis, out of prediction, out of what's going to happen next. And you come back into grounding, back into presence, and you reconnect. Not passively, not vaguely, intentionally. You come back to your practices, to your protection, to your guidance. Because this is not the time to drift. This is the time to become anchored. Fear around money is not about money. It is about what you believe you can hold. what you believe you deserve, what you believe is stable in your life. When fear increases, people lower themselves. They negotiate their worth. They make smaller decisions. They delay what they already know they need to do. And that keeps the cycle in place. So, this is the work, not just trying to make more, but becoming someone who can hold stability without collapsing into fear. I'm going to say that again. Becoming someone who can hold stability without collapsing into fear. So if you've been feeling this, this is not the time to ignore it. And it is not the time to try to push through it blindly. When you try to push and force in this state, it will only cause more friction and harm. Because this is the moment to look at what is actually running your system, to stop repeating it, to rebuild from something stronger. Not just financially, but internally, energetically, spiritually. Because uncertain times reveal everything. They show you what is stable and what is not. And this entire year is the time to step out of fear and into truth, to step out of fear and into love, to step out of survival and into stability. Because regardless of you have $1 in your bank account or $10 million in your bank account, if you're running from survival, it doesn't matter because it'll never be enough. People who have a lot of wealth often hoard wealth. They're not circulating wealth. They're not in a wealthy state of mind. They're always constantly working to make more money, more money, more money. And then you become a slave for money. You will do almost anything for money. You will kill, you will murder, you will do things that people couldn't even imagine because that's the sickness of survival. You have to survive. That is an internal instinct that you cannot stop. But you don't have to suffer and struggle to survive. There are people in the world living in what we consider the poorest places on earth, holding the biggest smiles on their faces. No worries, floating down a river, having a good time. And then there are people living in the most luxurious mansions filled with gold who are so miserable. And it's a choice. And you can say, oh, well, they don't know any better. Well, maybe we don't know any better. Maybe this is our time and our moment to really reevaluate how we want to live, what we want to share. Because true wealth, spiritual wealth, it comes from the inside and it radiates out. It helps, it serves, it generates. It's always looking for the places to flow. If you build $1 through spiritual charity, it can last longer than if you build it through your ego and fear. Ego will always find a way to spend money, and it will always be never enough. Spirit can make that dollar stretch. and it can create more dollars, but it has to have a place to flow, to expand, to grow. And I know right now, the number one biggest worry is money. But you know what? Ever since I have started sitting with people doing readings, which is since I was 3 years old, and now I'm in my 40s. And I'm going to tell you, that's always been the number one thing because it's not about money. It never has been and it never will be. Because as someone who has traveled the world, I have sat with so many people from so many different cultures, and money is not the primary concern in many places. Relationships, family, health. But here in the West and also in Japan and any developed country, so to say, money is obsessed about. It's sometimes worshiped in strange and unusual ways. It divides families. It becomes a source of pain instead of a source of joy. And I say that because I've sat with some of the richest people and I've been amazed because the way that they talk about money oftentimes is the same as someone who barely makes it, who barely survives. And so it's a mind, it's a nervous, it's this energy of sickness when it becomes survival, when it becomes never enough, when it becomes rooted in fear and havoc. And this time right now, it's a beautiful time to heal that. It's a beautiful time to let go, to stop the struggle, to step out of fear. And if you're really ready to stop repeating these patterns and you want to work through what is underneath this, then I invite you to book a private session on my website. And if you really want to begin shifting what is already in motion, you can start with a shamanic candle blessing. Every new moon and full moon, we open the portals so that you can release, you can receive, you can step out of the material and back into the spiritual. Because right now, if you keep running in survival, in fear, in the loop of not enough, your time on this earth won't be good. It will be very miserable. It's time to let go and trust. This is the Empowered Healers Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you in the next episode. Until we meet again, root in your power. Aho.